Hands up, now! The black woman is kneeling on the cold floor of the shooting range, handcuffs tight around her wrists, while 2 state troopers keep their guns trained on her. Around them, 5 people watch her like she's some dangerous criminal. She doesn't resist. She doesn't scream. She just looks at each of them with a calm that would chill anyone to the bone. Frank Morrison, the owner of the place, feels like he just made the biggest mistake of his life. But how did it come to this? 3 hours earlier, 5:47 in the morning, Savannah, Georgia, an isolated shooting range where only the most dedicated show up before sunrise. That same woman steps out of a plain Honda Civic. Her hair is pulled back in a simple bun, loose jeans, worn-out boots that have clearly seen better days, a black t-shirt with no logos. To anyone looking, just another person wanting to get some practice in before work. She walks up to the counter where Frank Morrison, a former Air Force sergeant, has been running the place for 12 years. He's seen it all. Nervous rookies, haunted veterans, businessmen trying to impress clients. Never in his life did he imagine he was about to meet someone who would change his entire perspective. "Morning. I'd like to rent a lane." Her voice is low, polite. Frank barely looks up from his newspaper. "First time here?" "Yes. I'll need to see your license and firearm registration." She hesitates, just for a second. But Frank, trained to read people, notices. "I don't have a local registration. I just moved here." Frank hands her the standard paperwork. She only fills out her name, Nia, leaves the rest blank. First sign that something was off. Lane 7, hearing protection is mandatory. Nia takes her position. She pulls a Glock 19 from her bag with a smoothness Frank's never seen from a civilian. She loads the gun, gets into firing stance, and bang! Target at 25 meters. Perfect bullseye. Frank stops reading his newspaper. Bang! 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 3 shots in a row. Same hole in the paper. Frank stands up slowly. In 12 years, he's never seen anything like it. Not from someone driving a Honda Civic wearing baggy jeans. Nia switches the target to 50 meters, a distance even experienced shooters find challenging. Bang! Dead center. Frank feels a chill down his spine. That woman wasn't just trained. She was something entirely different. She keeps firing like it's the most natural thing in the world. Every movement calculated, each breath controlled to stabilize her aim. Her posture radiates total body control, like she was born with a gun in her hand. 2 men in the lobby stop talking and watch through the glass window. Bill Thompson, a local contractor, and his brother-in-law Jerry, a retired cop. "Man, look at that. Who is she?" Jerry narrows his eyes. "Never seen her around here before. And look at the way she shoots. That's not normal. Nobody shoots like that unless they're military or something we should know about." Frank watches as Nia reloads her gun with movements way too precise for an average person. She scans the room, noting every angle, every exit, every person there, like she's always calculating escape routes, like she lives in constant combat mode. Jerry pulls out his phone. "I'm calling the station. Something's not right here." Frank closes his eyes. In a few minutes, everything is going to change at that shooting range. And Nia Carter, the woman nobody knows, is about to have her secret identity exposed in the worst possible way. What none of them realize is they're about to cuff one of the most important people to America's national security. If this story already has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe, because what comes next is even more thrilling. 20 minutes after the shots that had impressed Frank, 2 state police cruisers pulled up in front of the shooting range. Jerry had called in reporting suspicious behavior from a woman who shot way too well to be normal and refused to show complete paperwork. Sergeant Mike Collins and Officer Davis climbed the steps to the main entrance. Collins, with 15 years on the force, had arrested everyone from drug dealers to tax evaders, but never someone for shooting too well. Frank greeted them at the door, hesitant. "Is she still here?" "Lane 7. "Listen, Mike, I've seen trained people before. This woman is different." Collins brushed off the comment. To him, Frank was just exaggerating again like he always did with his old war stories. "I got this." The 2 officers walked down the hallway toward Lane 7. Nia was still firing, fully focused. She didn't seem to notice their arrival, but her shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. Frank, who had been watching her for an hour, caught the change. "Ma'am, State Police, stop shooting. and turn around slowly. Naya placed her gun on the bench with deliberately slow movements. She turned to face them with her hands slightly away from her body. Her eyes quickly scanned them. Two men, weapons drawn but pointed down, basic defensive stance. Collins to her left, Davis to her right. Main exit blocked, emergency exit 12 meters behind her. Identification. I don't have it with me. Full name. Nia Carter. Collins frowned. The answer came too fast, too automatic. Address. Pause. I'm moving. From where to where? Another pause. Virginia to here. Davis stepped closer. Ma'am, we got a report about suspicious behavior. Can you explain why you're shooting with that level of accuracy without any paperwork? Naya looked at them silently, not with fear or nervousness, with analysis. Like she was calculating 20 moves ahead in a chess game they didn't even know they were playing. I've been training since I was little. Where'd you learn? My dad taught me. Collins wasn't buying it. Something in her voice, her posture, the way she showed not a single hint of fear standing there in front of two armed officers. We're going to need you to come with us for some questions. Am I being arrested? You're being brought in for verification. Frank watched the scene from the lobby, his stomach churning. Jerry and Bill stood nearby, looking satisfied, like they'd uncovered some international conspiracy. What they didn't know was, they had stumbled onto something far bigger than they could imagine. Naya extended her wrists. You can cuff me. Collins hesitated. Criminals don't ask to be cuffed. Not with that calm. Not looking you straight in the eye without a shred of fear. But the cuffs went on her wrists anyway. And when they clicked shut, Nia did something that sent a chill down Frank's spine. She smiled. A small smile, almost imperceptible, like she knew exactly what was coming next, like she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. The walk to the cruiser was in complete silence. Nia took in every detail along the way, every parked car, every possible line of sight. Collins noticed she wasn't looking around like a criminal planning an escape. She was observing like someone who automatically assessed threats and tactical routes. Inside the cruiser, as they drove to the station, Davis tried again. Ma'am, if we can confirm your identity, this will be a lot easier for everyone. Nia stayed silent, staring out the window. But she wasn't seeing the passing scenery. She was counting blocks, memorizing the route, calculating response times. Like it was impossible to turn off a mental programming that had been running for decades. Up front, Collins turned on his radio. Dispatch, we're bringing in a female suspect for verification. Black female, approximately 35 years old. Name's Nia Carter. No ID. Requesting full system check. The response came within seconds. Collins, we're not finding anything under Nia Carter in the state system. We'll run it federally. 5 minutes of silence. Collins, negative on federal as well. This woman doesn't exist officially. And that's when Collins realized he had just arrested someone who might be far more dangerous than he thought, or far more important. He just didn't know yet that both were true. Chatham County's sheriff's station was not prepared to handle someone like Nia Carter. The red brick building, built back in the 80s, usually dealt with bar fights, petty theft, and car accidents. Never with someone who didn't officially exist in any American database. Collins and Davis escorted her to a small windowless interrogation room. Metal table, 2 chairs, a flickering fluorescent light overhead. Nia sat down and scanned every inch of the room. She located 3 security cameras, noted that the door had a standard lock, calculated that the back wall led to the parking lot. Water? Coffee? No, thank you. Collins opened an empty file. There wasn't much to write about someone who technically didn't exist. Let's try this again. Full name. Nia Carter. Nia short for what? Pause. Just Nia. Date of birth. March 15th, 1989. Collins wrote it down, knowing it was probably a lie. Last residence. Norfolk, Virginia. Occupation. Nia looked him straight in the eye. Consultant. Consultant for what? Security. Davis leaned forward. What kind of security? Corporate. Her answers came fast, rehearsed, like she'd had this cover identity ready for years. Collins realized he was dealing with someone trained to handle interrogations. Ms. Carter, let's be straight. Your firearm accuracy is consistent with advanced military or police training. But we can't find any record of you anywhere. That's a problem. Naya stayed silent. We can sit here all night. I know. She said it so naturally that Collins stopped writing. She hadn't said it as a challenge. She said it as a fact, like someone who'd spent nights in interrogation rooms before. On the other side of the one-way mirror, Detective Marcus Washington watched the scene. A cybercrime specialist and veteran of complex federal investigations, he picked up on details other officers missed, and what he saw in Naya Carter deeply unsettled him. She showed no fear, no arrogance, just professional patience, like someone who knew exactly how long they could stay silent before something bigger happened. Washington entered the room. Collins, Davis, step out for a minute. The two officers looked at each other, confused, but obeyed. Washington sat down across from Nia and watched her for almost a full minute without saying a word. How many years of service? The question caught Nia off guard. For the first time since she arrived, her calm mask slipped for half a second. I don't know what you're talking about. I spent 15 years in federal crimes before coming here. I know what intelligence training looks like. Nia composed herself again. I'm a security consultant. Lie. Security consultants don't automatically analyze exit points and tactical routes. They don't maintain combat-ready posture even in handcuffs. And they definitely don't disappear from every official database. Washington stood and began pacing around the table. The question is, are you an undercover agent who just got burned, or are you something I should be way more worried about? Naya followed him with her eyes but didn't answer, because if it's the first option, someone very important is going to show up here soon wanting explanations. And if it's the second, the station phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Washington heard hurried footsteps in the hall but ignored them. His investigator's intuition was screaming that he was missing something big. Let me put it another way. Your hands don't have calluses from construction or mechanical work, but they do have marks specific to someone who's handled firearms for years. Your posture is military, even though you're trying to hide it. And the way you scanned this room when you walked in, Nia stayed silent. But Washington noticed a barely perceptible change in her breathing. You're protecting something much bigger than yourself, aren't you? Before Nia could respond, urgent knocks on the door cut him off. Detective Washington? Phone call for you. They say it's urgent and can't wait. Washington hesitated. He was in the middle of something critical, but the insistence made him step out. In the hallway, Washington picked up the phone. Washington. Detective, this is General Patricia Hayes, Joint Special Operations Command, United States Army. Washington stopped breathing for a moment. I understand you have a black female detainee, approximately 35 years old, identifying herself as Nia Carter. How did you... Detective, that doesn't matter right now. Is she all right? She is. But General, good. I'm 40 minutes out from your station with an escort. And Detective? Washington felt like his entire career was about to change forever. Yes, ma'am. I hope you treated her with the respect she deserves, because you may have just detained one of the most important officers for this country's national security. The call ended. Washington stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the phone, trying to process what had just happened. Inside the interrogation room, Nia Carter finally smiled. A small smile, but genuine. The circus was about to begin. 42 minutes after the call, 3 armored military vehicles pulled up in front of the small Chatham County Sheriff's Station. The rumble of diesel engines woke up half the block. People peeked out their windows to see what was going on. From the central vehicle stepped out a white woman of about 55. Gray hair pulled back in a flawless military bun. Her uniform bearing 3 stars on the shoulders. General Patricia Hayes. Behind her walked 2 colonels and 4 soldiers in escort formation. Washington went out to meet them, still trying to process how a simple detention for suspicious behavior had turned into this. General Hayes, I'm Detective Washington. Where is she? Interrogation room, ma'am. But I should warn you, she refused to confirm any military identity. The general stopped and looked at him with an intensity that would have made a recruit faint. Of course she refused. That's exactly what she was supposed to do. Washington frowned. I don't understand, ma'am. You will soon enough. The general entered the station with her escort in tow. Every officer in the room stopped what they were doing. Collins and Davis, who had interrogated Nia, turned pale as they realized this was far bigger than they ever imagined. "Take me to her." Washington led the group to the interrogation room. Through the one-way mirror, they saw Naya sitting in the exact same position, calm, serene, like she'd just been waiting. The general watched for a few seconds before speaking. "Detective, what I'm about to say is classified. Understood?" Washington and the other officers nodded nervously. "This woman works in domestic counterterrorism operations, highly specific, highly dangerous." The general opened the door and walked in alone. "Captain." Nia stood immediately, assuming perfect military posture. The transformation was instant and shocking. "General Hayes." Washington watched, stunned. It was like seeing a completely different person. "The cuffs, Captain." Washington hurried to unlock the handcuffs. As they came off, Nia rubbed her wrists without any sign of irritation. "Mission status?" "Partially compromised, ma'am. Civilian cover burned, but targets were not alerted. Operational damage? Manageable. Operational identity preserved during interrogation." Washington couldn't stay silent any longer. "General, what kind of operation?" "Extremist cells using shooting ranges as recruitment hubs, detective. People planning attacks on military and civilian facilities." Collins, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "She was investigating." "The very people who reported her to you." Silence fell over the room like a hammer. Nia spoke for the first time since the general arrived. "Bill Thompson owns an arsenal incompatible with his declared income. Jerry Parker has Nordic symbol tattoos and connections to suspicious online groups. I've been tracking the network for 6 months. Washington felt like he'd been punched in the gut. We arrested the person who was protecting us, and almost sabotaged months of undercover work." The general turned to the officers. "Captain Carter has prevented other similar attacks. She saves lives by staying invisible, until you broke that invisibility." Collins looked visibly shaken. "But how were we supposed to know?" "You weren't. That was the point." The general paused. "But maybe you should ask yourselves why a competent black woman automatically became a suspect." The sentence echoed through the room like a gunshot. "Captain, we need to reconfigure the entire operation. The network will know someone was investigating." "Yes, ma'am. I already have alternatives." Nia turned to leave but stopped and looked at Washington. "Detective, you have good instincts. You recognized military training when you saw it." Washington didn't know what to say. "But next time, consider that competence isn't a crime, especially when it comes from the people you least expect." 3 weeks later, Frank Morrison opened the shooting range earlier than usual. He hadn't slept well since that morning that changed everything. He sat behind the counter with a cup of coffee growing cold as he replayed every moment in his mind. The doorbell rang. Frank looked up and froze. It was her. Nia Carter walked in wearing completely different clothes. Black cargo pants, military boots, an army t-shirt. She wasn't hiding anymore. "Morning, Frank." "Captain Carter," he stammered, starting to stand. "Just Nia. The operation's over." She walked up to the counter. Frank noticed her hands didn't shake like they had that first morning. I'm so sorry. Really. If I had known..." "Frank, can I tell you what really happened here?" He nodded, curious. Thompson and Parker weren't just prejudiced. They were part of a network of 11 men planning simultaneous attacks on 3 military bases in Georgia. They used your shooting range to recruit other shooters. Frank went pale. "Here. They watched for anyone with military skills and tried to bring them into the group. That's why they reported me so quickly. I wasn't the profile they wanted, but my accuracy scared them." Nia picked up the pen on the counter and filled out a new registration form. Full name, address, phone number, military rank. "The network was dismantled last week. We found enough explosives to kill hundreds of people." Frank slumped into his chair. "And if I hadn't..." "You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You noticed something off and acted. But I turned you in. You protected your business and your customers. Any responsible owner would have done that." Nia walked over to lane 7, the same one from 3 weeks ago. But this time, she wasn't hiding. She drew a military-issued pistol, took an official shooting stance, and fired with the precision she always had. "Frank, in the last 8 years living undercover, I've been questioned or detained 51 times for being too competent for what people expected from me." Frank stopped breathing. Black woman driving an expensive car. Must be a drug dealer. Black woman knowing too much about technology. Must be a hacker. Black woman shooting well. Must be a criminal. She reloaded her weapon with precise movements. But you all were different. Washington recognized me as a trained professional. Collins and Davis treated me with respect, and you tried to defend me, even thinking I was suspicious. I was wrong. No, you were protecting people. That's different. 2 hours later, Bill Thompson and Jerry Parker walked into the shooting range. They didn't know they'd been arrested in the operation the week before and released on bail. They came in to gloat about having caught the spy. Hey, Frank, we heard the black chick was military after all. We knew something was off. Frank stared at them with a coldness they'd never seen. What you knew was that you were planning to kill American soldiers. Thompson froze. What are you talking about? The FBI told me everything. You used my place to recruit terrorists. Parker turned white. That's a lie. Get out. Now, and don't come back. The two men left quickly. 3 days later, they would be sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiracy to commit terrorism. 6 months later, Frank's shooting range had become known for ethical training. Nia trained there twice a week, always in uniform, always proud of who she was. Other veterans of all ethnicities started coming too. Frank learned to tell the difference between responsible vigilance and disguised prejudice. He learned that the most extraordinary people often hide behind the most ordinary appearances, and he learned that protecting your community means recognizing the real enemies. Because sometimes, the woman you think is suspicious is the very one risking her life to protect you. And sometimes, the people who seem the most normal are the ones who pose the real danger. Thompson and Parker looked like regular citizens. Nia Carter looked suspicious. The difference? Nia was saving lives. They were planning to take them. And you? Can you tell the difference between real protection and disguised prejudice? Have you ever judged someone by how they looked only to find out you were completely wrong? Tell us in the comments. And if this story made you think, share it, subscribe to the channel, and hit that like button. Check out the next video that's about to pop up on your screen. It was made with a lot of care, because judging by appearances could make you handcuff a hero and shake hands with a terrorist.